Welcome to the Young Artists podcast, when young artists take center stage. I'm your host, Natalia, and this is the place where we dive deep into the minds and works of emerging artists, exploring their unique perspectives and creative journeys. Enjoy! Introducing our extraordinary guest for today's episode of the Young Artist podcast, Angie Hori, an interdisciplinary designer whose creative journey takes us on a profound exploration of colonial legacies and personal identity. With a unique blend of influences from Japanese Ghanaian heritage, biochemistry, and design, Angie unveils the intricate tapestry of her artistry. Hi, Angie.
Hi.
Great to have you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh.
So, could you introduce your practice a little bit, please?
To be completely honest, I am very much in like the genesis stage of my practice. So it's quite evolving. So if I say something today, it could be something different tomorrow.
Of course.
But essentially, for now, I'm very interested in creating interventions or installations for public spaces. And so I have worked on 2 projects where I created a structure in a public space. And the concepts behind these structures were very much influenced by my heritage, my background as being Japanese Ghanaian. And both projects were situated in either Japan or Ghana, respectively.
Your heritage is extremely, I feel like, interesting. Could you disclose a little bit how it is to be of such a rich cultural background?
Surprisingly, there's a lot of half Japanese, half Ghanaians. We
Really?
kind of all know each other. It's really weird. Like, there's there's a couple like influencer, and then there's also people doing and I do know them because like we're all like in
Like a community.
Yeah. But I guess my brother put it in a really, really like good way, but essentially we're kind of just confused because I don't know, I feel like being Japanese is like the polar opposite of being Ghanaian. Japanese,
In what way?
I guess, okay, so let's say Japanese people are very organized and very like regimented, very they stick to the status quo of the Japanese society, versus Ghanaians are way like relaxed, chill, always late to things. Like in Japan, people will arrive 30 minutes before something starts. In Ghana, people arrive 2 hours late.
Oh,
That's
really?
like it's like you can't even expect anything to function on time in Ghana. Everything is late. Like I literally once went to a birthday party, and the person whose birthday party it was for was 3 hours late.
Oh my god.
They organized it. So
Okay, I can see that.
It's just very much polar opposite cultures. So when you have, as an individual who's instilled with these 2 different cultures, you kind of start to notice like, the negative aspects of the respective cultures and how one could feed into the other. And it's very much a state of being where you're kind of in flux.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, how did these 2 cultures influence your art practice?
I would say it predominantly influences my practice in regards to the visual language of my work, and also just the context behind which I create work. So I am interested in unpacking what does that mean to decolonize in design visually. And so I kind of like to look towards historically how has colonization impacted the respective cultures that I'm from, or how has it occurred in the respective cultures that I'm from. So obviously Japan colonized a bunch of East Asian and Pacific Island nations, and Ghana was colonized by the British and also the Portuguese. So, just kind of looking at how this history of colonization kind of impacts the contemporary world today, and just how I can express this impact visually and also through the narratives of my work.
Angie, your work really explores the topic of colonial legacies. Could you elaborate on why is this topic so significant to you?
So prior to coming to the UK to study at the RCA, I was really interested in kind of questioning where I'm getting my knowledge from and thinking about, okay, so what am I using to inform my practice? And just what do I deem is considered good or bad art design. And obviously having a biochem background, when you look at information that you receive, it's very much Eurocentric. And you don't really get any information that is perhaps from other corners of the world. But there definitely has been, work and research done in other corners of the world. So it made me think, okay, now that I'm studying this new subject that's really important to me, how can I decide how I obtain knowledge and how I navigate this landscape of creating work. And so it was really important to me to acknowledge that this system exists where it's like there's a pervading narrative, there's a canon, and certain cultures are deemed better than others. And so in my work, I like to explore how these legacies impact contemporary affairs, impact visual language, impact, just the general canon of design and art and design. And so it was just really important for me just to approach knowledge formation in a decolonial way. And so that just kind of seeped into also what I was exploring in my work and also creating.
In regards to your recent project, you used the word nekokaburi. Can you introduce this project and tell me what does this word mean and how it relates to the project?
Essentially, so nekokaburi means to feign ignorance. The direct translation is a cat wearing a cat, so kind of akin to a wolf in sheep's clothing. So I use this word to describe what the Japanese government has done and is doing today with regards to its colonial past. So it's commonly used as a term in, I guess, like colloquial speech where people are like, oh, あの子猫かぶってるよね, which is like, oh, that girl, she's like feigning ignorance. It's usually used like among young people, I guess, to kind of describe an individual who's like acting in a way that they're not. But I kind of like to use these sort of, how would I describe this? I guess more playful ways of describing things or visually representing things or linguistically representing things to discuss dark, entangled histories. Because as an individual, I'm tired. I'm tired of this narrative, and I'm just kind of like, any small way of me being like, yeah, I'm just like, I'm trying to like talk about this deep, dark thing, but I want to talk about it in a kind of lighter way to make it in a way, I guess, more accessible. In a similar realm of how if you watch a TV show like BoJack Horseman, where if you look at it, it's like super bright and super colorful and it's super inviting, but when you actually watch it, it's really deep and fucked up. And like the characters are all like, they have their own issues, and so yeah, it's kind of like through using this playful visual language and also linguistic simplistic concept of like Neko Kaburi just being like light and fun. I just hope to be able to bring to the surface of something that's actually really messed up.
Yeah,
So
I can
my
see that. It's a
hoping.
good way to engaging the wider public, I think,
Yeah,
using like a more playful word. I
yeah.
also really like how playful your design is. Like this gate looking like a cat. And how do you feel that this gate fits into the broader context of public art? And in what way do you want the gate to convey the message?
To be honest, like this is actually something that I've been struggling with, trying to connect like the intent behind my work to like the message that I'm trying to convey, because obviously like art is perceived differently depending on like an individual's context and all of that. And in the case of like public art, because it's available to the public, you have like no control over the perception, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's very different from like let's say a work at a gallery, because usually if it's in a gallery it's like a certain demographic, a certain individual is interested enough to go and seek out this space, versus a public installation is something that like anyone could come across, you know, someone who
Yeah, I
has.
know.
Yeah, so it's it's kind of something that I'm definitely like questioning in myself and in my practice, which is why yeah, this kind of question is something that I do want to think about more and consider in my future works, and in order to just, I guess, have a more like cohesive like narrative in terms of like how I disseminate work or create work. Yeah.
In terms of Nekokaburi and being inspired by the Japanese culture, what else do you bring from the Japanese culture to the project?
I guess it more has to do with like that history of the colonial legacy that Japan has, but then also with the representation of a cat is also very significant in Japanese culture, because cats are really they're viewed as good luck, good fortune in Japan. Essentially, using like a cat to describe this essentially horrific past, when a cat is so synonymous with good luck and good fortune. What does that mean? I don't know. But that's also part of the culture that I'm bringing in a way.
I feel like it has a lot of sense because, in a way, you don't want to really put Japan in a negative light, but you really want to celebrate Japanese culture in the same time of bringing awareness to its past. So I think this symbolic of the happiness and good luck is in a way trying to reverse the narrative.
Okay.
I can see that
Thank
that
you. I
way.
have I have no idea. Like I did struggle with that a lot in terms of like the representation, because obviously like certain specific things have like you know, deep connotations with an idea. So the cat with good fortune and good luck here, whereas in the West I feel like cats are associated with bad luck and
Yeah,
bad
especially, you know,
misfortune.
like the black cat crossing the
Yeah,
road.
exactly.
It is presumed as a bad luck.
Exactly. So, I really do kind of struggle with that, trying to navigate how certain depictions of something are associated heavily with a certain idea.
It is a difficult process, you
Yeah,
know,
it
like
really is.
redefining certain stereotypical thinking or redefined aspects. It is a difficult thing to do, so it's very impressive that you try and you really think about it. I love your project, the reinterpreting the trade beats.
Oh, really? Okay.
Could you introduce the project, please?
Yeah, so for that project, I was obviously inspired by the trade bead, and I was just like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing right now, so I am just going to make a bunch of beads. was the main
Can you
thing.
just introduce how did the trade bead work in the past?
Oh, of course. So essentially, trade beads were a form of currency. And so they were used to trade goods and also slaves. And this was obviously predominantly in like the West African, sub-Saharan African region. So for me, it was really intriguing, the idea of like how a bead could hold so much value.
Was it a bead meant for jewelry design or more for hair, or what type of bead was that?
Yeah, it was predominantly for jewelry. Like people would wear it like on their like neck, waist, arm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not, I think, was it used for hair? I'm not sure. But predominantly it was used as like a marker of status.
Yeah.
So like depending on what kind of bead you had, it kind of signified towards like a certain level or status in society back in those days. But yeah, it was just really interesting how beads held so much significance as a currency and as a form of like status recognition for me. And then obviously now how it doesn't hold that value at all. And also just thinking about how at the end of the day, a bead is just like an ornamental object. It has no function. You know what I mean? Like the most function it probably held that I saw was it was used by some women in Ghana to hold up a piece of cloth so that they can wear it as underwear. And like the beads was like a waist bead type situation. And then like cloth to hold it kind of like a belt function.
Okay.
Yeah. So but like would you say that that is the bead doing that, or is it the string that's holding the beads together that's helping the belt? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like the bead in itself is like, no offense, useless. It's just purely aesthetic, purely a visual thing. So I was really inspired by that, and so I created beads to kind of re-engage with the design process of making beads. And through that process, I was able to ideate on a project in which I created sculptural benches for the beachside in Ghana.
So what is gonna be the function of those benches?
So my idea slash hope for that project was for it to be a space where people can gather and just sit, because the beachside or the waterfront is a site with colonial history. Obviously, that's where the boats arrived from whatever European country to collect slaves and, you know, take them back or like bring in goods and take out goods and all of that. But then now in Ghana, the beach is very much used as a social place. You know, they host events, beach parties, concerts, all sorts of stuff. So just kind of like, it's kind of like this play on how this site where it used to have like a colonial legacy, benches inspired by beads that have a colonial significance. And so this reinterpretation of a trade bead to a bench used for social amelioration is like my whole thing of just like
Reinterpreting and creating this installation.
yeah, just kind of repurposing and just reimagining something.
I really like how your ideas come from real life observation. So in a way, you can see that this place, which in the past would be connected to something really bad, like the trade of slaves, now is really a place of people gathering, socializing, and really having like a happy moment. And this little moment could be used to celebrate or like to give respect to the past. And I'm just wondering, because I know that you draw inspiration from Motoyuki Shitamachi's photograph. for this
You know
project?
what's so crazy? I was about to mention it.
Please tell me more about that.
Yeah, so basically he took pictures of torii gates in different locations, and the one image that I find so like interesting is the one in Taiwan where the gate is no longer standing. It's just like on the floor, you know.
Did it fall or?
Yeah, did it fall? I think it did. I'm not sure. But the more, I guess, significant aspect of it is the fact that so it's there, it's on the floor, and people are sitting on it like a bench, and he took a
Yeah.
picture of that. And it's kind of like, okay, so what? It's actually really interesting because these gates are colonial object, obviously, because Japan, when they colonized, they built all these temples, and the gates were like a symbol of like Japan's like domination over a land, right? So now that this gate has fallen and people are sitting on it and using it as a bench, it's kind of like they have repurposed this colonial object to fit a local context, like
Yeah.
just completely. Now it's for them, it's for them to use. It's no longer really, well, it is still this thing with the connotations to a really dark past, but they have like what is the word that I'm looking for, like
Redefined?
they have redefined it for themselves, you know, like it is now for them to use as a bench for their park. So yeah, I really enjoyed that image. Yeah.
So this particular one was
Yeah.
the inspiration for you to create the benches.
Yeah. It really did like inspire me. It's, I guess, in a way I was trying to like emulate what occurred in his image. Yeah.
Speaking of inspirations, what are your favorite artists that you draw inspiration from?
So I really enjoy Yinka Iori. I am so sorry if I'm butchering his name, but yeah, I feel like I talk about him too much in everything, but I really like the use of colors in his work and the incorporation of his Nigerian British heritage into the visual language of his designs. And I actually went to go see a talk by him during the London Design Festival, which was really cool. Really chill dude.
Oh,
And
so you had a chance to meet him.
no, I was too scared.
Oh, but he was there.
He was there.
Okay.
I saw him from like
From a
afar.
distance, yeah.
From a distance. But yeah, I really like how he doesn't shy away from incorporating the patterns that he uses in his work. Like he doesn't shy away from including his heritage in his work through the patterns. And so it's like it's kind of like, you know, represent, you know,
Yeah.
like like I'm tired of seeing gray. I am tired of seeing sleek gray designs of public spaces, cold architecture. Like I'm done. I'm good.
Yeah.
I prefer looking at colorful, bright. A good example of a thing of a space that I really like is, you know, the Celeron steps in Rio.
I don't, but I need to look it up definitely.
Yeah, it's like this place. It's like just like a stairway, but then there's a bunch of like tiles, and it's like designed really pretty. It's like a really famous like picture spot. But the really significant thing about that work is that in Brazil, a lot of public art is used to kind of make the place be more inviting and like feel safer. And you actually do feel it, you know? If you're walking late at night, and where are you gonna feel safer? In an alleyway that's completely gray and black and dark, or in a dark but colorful alleyway?
I can see that.
You know what I mean? So it's just, I really like how the incorporating color and like public art into installation art into public spaces can really make a place feel safer, more inviting, more relaxing, comforting, anything, just better than gray. Yeah.
So, do you feel like your design of the beach place on the beach is also supposed to make the place that was before really unsafe, make it like safer and more pleasant in the present.
To be honest, the beach is already now a safe space. I think for me, that design was just kind of tying in those histories in a way, just like a subtle reminder that, you know, this was our past and like it is the case. But then also just playing into the whole like, now that it's a space for like cultural events and stuff, like it just definitely adds to the space. Yeah, but then also paying homage to that legacy.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, as an artist working on projects deeply connected to historical and societal issues, what role do you believe art plays in fostering awareness and change?
I think it plays a huge role, but at the same time, it's like really hard to say like whether it is like effective or not. I think one of the main problems with art and design is that I feel like it feels really like it's not accessible. Like before I started this course, I was doing biochem and like I did not know anything
About art?
Yeah, like I just like you go to galleries and you're like, oh, nice painting, blah blah blah. Like it so the art, because it plays such a huge role in like social and like historical narratives and just problems and issues and like contemporary issues, I feel like one of the most important things to also consider is like how can we make it more accessible? Because it plays such a huge role in these topics, the accessibility of it in terms of like understanding by the audience is so important, so that like at least this issue can actually be discussed, you know? Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I would love to ask you one more question. We always ask the artist about the advice for the emerging artists. What's your personal advice?
Ooh, fancy question. That's kind of hard. Okay, there is this Ghanaian. Is he an artist? Yes, he's an artist called Joseph Awa Darko. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering his name. Sorry, oops. But he made this Instagram post where he wrote, "Dear artists, an idea without execution is hallucination." And I really like how he kind of really very much so directly put it. It kind of like stabs at my heart a little bit, but I really resonate with it because I feel like a lot of the time people are just kind of too much in their head, you know, coming up with ideas. Is this good? Is this not good? Blah, blah, blah. It's all in their head and they're not actually executing anything. And I suffer from that a lot. So I think for young artists, what the most important thing that they can do for themselves is to just get out of their head and create.
That's a great advice. I think a lot of people suffer from it.
Yeah.
It's difficult to sit down and just get going.
Yeah, very much so. And I think it applies like across like different industries.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, for young artists, you know, you're not gonna have a portfolio if it's all in your head.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great one. I will try to find that artist and reference him on our Instagram so that everybody can see this one. But thank you, Angie, for sharing your great insights and profound stories behind your artistic projects. And I really love your ability to blend history, culture, and personal connections into the installation. It's really inspiring. I truly hope that your work continues to bring these meaningful conversations and spark positive change. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And thanks for listening to us. Please check Young Artists Podcast on Instagram for behind the scenes glimpses and updates on coming episodes. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on the Young Artists Podcast. Don't forget to stay connected with us on Instagram and LinkedIn. Follow us at Young Artist Podcast for behind-the-scenes glimpses, updates, and even more artistic inspiration. Your support fuels our creativity.